Hi everyone, this is Anna with Scrapping, Stamping, and Stuff. Glad you can join in today. Now, in my last video, I talked all about our stamps, the photopolymer versus the cling stamps, how to prepare them, how to use them, some tips and tricks to just kind of make your stamping experience a little bit better. Today, I am going to talk all about ink and hopefully share a few things that may help you learn a little bit about our inks and take care of your ink pads and a few things like that. So the first thing I guess I'll mention is one of my favorite things about Stampin' Up's products is the coordination. So we have a certain number of colors, which is typically 50 or 52, and all of them coordinate between our inks, our markers, our papers. It all coordinates. So when you make a card, you don't have to sit around and spend 10 minutes trying to find paper and ink that matches because all of our products coordinate. So that's one really nice benefit. Now, another thing that is huge, in my opinion, is that when you get our ink pads, you should be able to use this ink pad for a very, very long time. Because when you run out of ink, you have refills that you can purchase for just a couple of dollars so that you can keep using this ink pad for a really long time. Just keep re-inking it when it gets low on ink. So you don't have to throw this out. You just keep re-inking it. Same thing with our markers. A lot of people don't, even some of my experienced customers don't realize that you can use these ink refills to refill our markers as well. So we will talk about some of those things and hopefully help you learn a couple of things. First, I want to talk about some of the benefits of our ink pads. I just told you one of them is that once you purchase it, you should never have to throw it away because you can always get a refill. That's one of the benefits. Now, something else that when you look at these, they look a little different than most ink pads that you see, and you have to learn how to open it. So on this end is a little groove. That's where you lift. You open it up all the way, and then you simply push it back into place. It locks in like that. Perfect stamping surface. When you're done, you pull on this little tray. That's for your fingers. Pull it all the way out, push it over, and it locks back in place. A couple years ago, we changed our ink pad design. So this is how the new ones work, which a lot of people like better than the old ones. One big benefit of this is when you drop this on the floor or when your toddler runs off with it when you aren't expecting it and they drop it, it doesn't pop open and get ink all over the place. So locking shut is a really nice benefit. One other benefit is you always want to store your ink pads upside down so that when you are stamping, you want that ink right here on the surface so that your stamp can pick it up. If it's sunk down in the bottom, you're not going to be able to ink your stamp very well. So ours are made so that they always store upside down. What else? So these have a nice large stamping surface, which is really nice. And there's really just a lot of benefits of these ink pads. So that's just a few of them. Somebody just delivered this to my table, I see. So let's see, I showed you how to open them. Let's talk about storage for a minute.
Are you going to talk about the markers?
I will talk about the markers. So I pulled off just the very top of my stack of ink pads here on my craft table right behind me. These you can stack these as high as you want. I'm sure there's a limit to where you wouldn't want to go over, like, 15 or 20 of them because they may get a little wobbly. But I love these. I have them stored in color order. Here is where my crumb cake belongs. And they're made, you can store your ink, your marker right beside it. They're right there. You can get different pieces and parts. These all pull apart, and you can add these on top. You can do a lot of different things with these storage, but this is how I store mine.
The things on top, whatever colors, you can put the refills in there.
You're right. Thank you for mentioning that because I'm sure I would have forgotten. It's nice to keep your color collections if you want to keep all your neutral ink pads in one stack. Then at the top, you can keep all your neutral ink refills. That way when you get a little low on ink, they're right there. You grab the one you want. You can refill it real fast, which I'm going to show you how to do here in a minute.
I know how.
But that's a little bit about our storage. So let's talk about re-inking these. I just re-inked this one the other day, so it shouldn't really need much. But I use this one all the time, so...
I like crumb cake too.
Yep, it's a good one. Crumb cake's a good color. So this is not tricky. You just turn your ink refill upside down, and you're going to apply ink in some sort of swirly motion back and forth. You don't want to put a ton on. Always start with less, because if you don't get enough in, you can always add more. You can't, it's a little harder to take extra ink out once you've put it in. So once you have done that, you want to distribute the ink somehow. Some people do this with like a credit card or some kind of plastic store card like a credit card. But you really just want something to move the ink around and make sure it's distributed so that it's not still in those lines where you put it in there. Now, I forgot to re-wet my chamois here, so it's a little dry from yesterday, but that's okay. You want to go do it? Thank you. It pays to have a handy assistant sometimes. So that's how you put ink in here. Now, I will also mention, have any of you ever had too much ink in a pad where some of the real fine stamps, if you ink them and you have any too much ink in your pad, it fills in the little fine cracks and then it doesn't stamp right, or it's just too kind of gushy and gooey looking when you stamp. So if you ever get too much ink in your pad, I'm pushing harder this time. And let's see, can you see that has sucked that ink out of there and made it drier? If you push and pull back on this, you can see this end is darker where there's more ink and this is lighter. So that you can do that to kind of clear some of that ink out of that surface and help it to ink a little bit better without too much ink. Now I'm going to spread that back out because that's not the way I want to leave it.
Sammy?
Clean this off again. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. It's kind of a little too wet.
And let's talk about keeping these clean. I don't know about you. I'm not always the cleanest, neatest stamper. Oh my goodness. Are my blonde hairs here? Anybody else have hairs just show up all over the place?
Me.
You. Okay, so keeping these clean. I actually just wiped this down before because I was embarrassed that it was dirty. But a nice way to wipe these off is this Stampin' Chamois. This is one of our best tools for cleaning stamps. But you can use this and just wipe it off. You can use this thing to clean anything. Your work surface, your hands. But I really like them for cleaning the stamps. Even when the ink gets right along this edge, I just go right along there. Yes, it's going to get a little bit of ink right off the pad, but it doesn't matter, and it
because the chamois
cleans up
everything, the ink off of the stamp.
Yeah. So it just gets it nice and clean. That's kind of a nice way to clean them up with a little bit of effort. Let's see. Where am I? Okay. One other thing that can be kind of handy with these ink pads is if you've ever used an aqua painter.
I love the aqua painter.
These are one reason you might want to be able to pick up just a little bit of ink. And there's other techniques as well that you may want to pick up just a little bit of that ink. And you don't really want to do it directly from the ink pad because then you may be introducing water from this to your ink pad. You don't really want that. So if you squish from top to bottom, you have to do this pretty firmly on these ink pads, but squeeze it pretty hard, open it up, and you have a little ink palette here that you can ink your aqua painter and use this as you want to. And then when you're done, a lot of times I just put mine away right like this, and then if I need to use it again next time, it's there. If not, it's not really getting in the way of anything. If they do ever get messy or you want to clean it out, you can just run that under the sink
Or the chamois.
Just run it under the sink, it rinses it out of there, and you can dry it out. You could also use the chamois. We'll do that right now. So if you like to keep them clean, you can do that.
I like to keep them clean.
Yes, very good. I will also mention, you've probably seen these labels when I've flipped this over a couple of times. So this is a label sheet
for the
that will peel off of here. And now it's going to tear on me because I'm not being careful. So I'm going to peel this off just to make sure you know what I'm talking about here. And when this came, there were 5 of them. As you can see, I have removed 3 of them. So they are long, narrow stickers in
you put them on
the color of the
refills.
ink pad.
Right here.
So, I'll tell you. So one of them was labeled crumb cake. A couple of them are in different languages. So I take the crumb cake one and put it on the front of my ink pad so that when it's stored in my storage, I can see what color that is. The blank one, I always remove and I place in this little tray right here. Because when you get a couple of ink pads sitting side by side on your stamping surface,
that looks weird.
And they're similar colors, it is really hard to tell. Like, I don't know what color that is right now, but I can tell by looking at the little label in the tray which color it is and make sure I ink using
green.
the right. Is this one green? See, you can't tell either. It's soft suede.
Kind of green.
So I put one of these labels in that tray. One of the other ones in one of the other languages, I wrap around the top of my ink refill. That way, when these are all sitting together in the storage, it's easy for me to look and grab the color that I want.
Yeah.
If you have any other ideas for these extra ones, let me know. I am always looking for new ideas.
I'll clean your thing out.
Okay. Now we need to talk about these markers. So these coordinate with our ink pads. You can get our Stampin' Right markers in our color collections.
Refill this. You just have to screw it off too.
Okay, thanks. She's talking about the aqua painter that you can refill it. My little helper, she's home on quarantine time, so she's my little handy assistant. So the markers, they come in the color collections. You can get these in the neutrals, the subtles, the regals, etc. And they come with a fine tip and a, now I'm not going to remember the end of this. Is this called calligraphy? I don't think it's called bold, but it's nice because it comes to a point, but it also has the thicker part. So you can use it to do calligraphy type methods if you want to. You don't have to have that bold tip if you don't press that hard. But sometimes these go dry. You've used up a lot of the ink. You need to refill it. So I'm going to grab a piece of scrap paper to lay under me because this usually is a little bit of a messy job.
Yes.
And you're going to pull this tip all the way out. You can use tweezers if you want. I usually do it just like I'm showing you right now. And I just have inky fingers for a little while and I don't worry about that too much. So now you're just going to drop ink down in here. And you want to use caution while you're doing this. I usually do it 1 drop at a time and just give it a second to soak down in. If you add too much ink or you add ink too fast, it is going to overflow and you're going to have a mess and you're going to be slightly grumpier than you were before you started. So I really suggest just a drop at a time. My first few drops were very small, so I'm going to add a few more normal size drops. I really suggest starting with about 10 drops and seeing if that is enough ink to keep going. I can see, I'm looking directly down in here, and I can see that that ink is not starting to build up yet. So because of that, I'm going to keep adding a little bit. But if you get too much in there, then you go to put the tip back in and it won't go down in without pushing that extra ink out. So that's when you get a giant mess that you don't want.
Mommy, are you going to use the chamois?
So I'm going to do one more, and now I am going to stop. Mom. So I'll put this back in. Sure, I can use my chamois to clean my hands. So I'll put this back in, and you want to let this sit horizontally. You always want to store these markers horizontally so that the ink is going to be accessible in both of these tips. But you want to leave it horizontal for a little bit, maybe 5-10 minutes. Try it out and see if you have enough ink in there. If not, you can try that again. So the more you do this, the more you kind of get the hang of how much ink it really needs. But that is how you refill the markers. Since I mentioned that these should always be stored horizontally, I should mention that the ink pads are the same. You don't want to store these up on their sides in any way like this. The ink then all runs to one edge, and if you have a lot of ink in it, it can run out inside there and make a big mess. So you always want to store these level, that way the ink is just spread out all across the surface where you need it. I believe that is all that I wanted to cover today for our ink pads and markers and refills. If you have any questions about this, please let me know. Stampin' Up! Has just really high quality supplies, and like you could see, when you can use the refills, use them for the pads, the markers, keep reusing them for a long time, it's really a good investment for your craft dollars so that you can keep getting use out of those for a long time. So please let me know if you have questions. You can find out more information at my website, scrappingstampingandstuff.com, and I hope you have a great day. Stop in again soon.